I was running 5 minutes late, which never happened. Traffic stalled near South Congress, my phone buzzing with a message from Colin asking if I'd ordered yet. Same joke he always made. Same restaurant. Same table. 14 years of repetition that once felt romantic and now feels embarrassing just thinking about it. I walked in expecting the familiar warmth. The maitre d' smiled, already reaching for menus, already saying my name like I belonged there. And then I saw the table. Our table. Colin was seated on my side of it, relaxed, jacket off, leaning forward like a man who had nowhere else to be. His hand rested on the white tablecloth. A woman's fingers were threaded through his like it was the most natural thing in the world. She laughed at something he said, a soft, practiced laugh, the kind meant to signal intimacy. I stopped walking. My body reacted before my mind did. My chest tightened. Breath caught somewhere between my throat and my ribs. For a second, I thought I might be dizzy, or mistaken, or stepping into the wrong version of reality. Then I heard her voice. "So next year," she said, smiling at him. "Same night, same place, right?" I knew that line. I'd said it myself for years. Colin smiled back at her. Of course, traditions matter. That's when I understood. Not suspected, not wondered. Understood. People like to imagine betrayal as explosive, screaming, plates thrown, tears. That's not what it felt like. It felt like the room narrowed to a single point, sharp and unforgiving. I took another step forward. The waiter noticed me first. His smile faltered. His eyes flicked from me to Colin and back again. Confusion crossed his face, then something close to dread. Colin followed his gaze. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost impressive. "Rachel," he said, standing abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor, drawing attention. Too much attention. The woman turned slowly. She looked me up and down with a flicker of annoyance like I'd interrupted something private. Then her expression shifted. Confusion, recognition, calculation. "Oh," she said. "You must be—" "I'm his wife," I said calmly. My voice surprised me. Steady, clear, loud enough. The surrounding tables went quiet. Not fully silent. Restaurants never are. But quiet enough that I felt the weight of eyes settling on us. Phones paused mid-scroll. Forks hovered. Colin reached for me. I stepped back. "Rachel, please," he said. "This isn't—" "Isn't what?" I asked. "What exactly isn't this?" He opened his mouth, closed it. The woman straightened in her chair. "You didn't tell me he was married," she said sharply, turning to him. Her tone wasn't hurt. It was irritated. I looked at her then. Really looked. Early 30s. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. The kind of confidence that comes from believing consequences are for other people. "He did," I said. "He just didn't tell you he was still married." Her eyes flicked back to me. Then to Colin. "You said you were separated." "I said we were having problems." He shot back, too quickly. Too defensive. I laughed once. It came out harsh and unexpected. 14 years, I said. 14 anniversaries, and you bring her here. He swallowed. "I was going to tell you." "When?" I asked. "After dessert?" Someone nearby let out a soft gasp. I didn't look. I didn't need to. I could feel the moment stretching, becoming something people would remember. The woman stood. "I'm not doing this," she said, grabbing her purse. "You said this was handled." She brushed past me without apology. Colin watched her go, panic flickering across his face. Then he turned back to me, lowering his voice. "Rachel, let's talk somewhere private." I leaned in just enough for him to hear me. "This was private. You're the one who made it public." His jaw tightened. "You're embarrassing me." That did it. I straightened, letting my voice carry again. "You embarrassed yourself." A few people shifted uncomfortably. A man 2 tables over pretended to check his phone while very clearly recording. Colin reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small envelope. White. Thick. I was going to give you this tonight, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. I didn't plan for this. I took the envelope. The room seemed to hold its breath with me. Inside was a reservation confirmation. Not here, somewhere else. A resort. 2 names, not mine. I slid the paper back into the envelope and placed it gently on the table. You planned plenty, I said. You just didn't plan for me to see. Rachel, please, he whispered. Don't do this. Do what? I asked. Leave? He nodded, eyes glossy. We can fix this. I looked around the room one last time. At the witnesses, at the table that had once meant everything to me. No, I said quietly. We can't. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard him call my name again. Louder this time. Desperate. I didn't stop. Outside, the night air hit my face like a slap. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, hands shaking, heart racing, the world suddenly too sharp and too bright. I wasn't crying. I was thinking. About the accounts, about the house, about the signatures I had access to, about the things he assumed I would never use against him. He thought betrayal was the end of this story. He was wrong. It was the beginning. I didn't marry a stranger. That's the part people always get wrong. Colin wasn't reckless when I met him. He was charming in a contained way. Ambitious, but careful. He talked about stability, legacy, building something solid. I believed him because I wanted the same things. Because after losing my father in my early 20s, I learned to value consistency over sparks. We married young enough to grow together and old enough to think we knew what we were doing. For a long time we did. When my father died, he left me more than grief. He left me equity, commercial properties he'd built slowly over decades. I didn't flaunt it. I didn't even talk about it much. I rolled the income back into renovations, leases, quiet growth. Colin knew. He always knew. He framed it as our future, even though the assets stayed in my name on my lawyer's advice. At the time, that felt cautious, not prophetic. Colin's real estate ventures took off fast once he had access to capital. My capital. Down payments. Bridge loans. Personal guarantees I signed without reading every line because I trusted my husband. Every win became his story to tell. Every risk quietly landed on my shoulders. We had our daughter, Maya, when I was 36. She became the center of everything. Or at least she should have. Colin worked more, traveled more, said it was temporary, said he was doing it for us. I ignored the signs because they didn't arrive all at once. The phone that never left his hand. The way he stepped outside to take calls. The sudden interest in image, clothes, lighting, how things looked to other people. The PR consultant he hired for business. And the absences, missed dinners, delayed flights, anniversaries rescheduled. Always with an explanation that sounded reasonable if you didn't line them up side by side. Maya noticed before I did. Why doesn't Dad come to things anymore? She asked once, tying her shoes for school. Did I do something? I told her no. I told myself no. The night after the restaurant, I didn't go home. I drove until my hands stopped shaking and parked outside my sister Naomi's place. I didn't even knock. I just sat there until she opened the door and pulled me inside. I didn't need to explain much. Naomi had already suspected. She handed me her phone without a word. On the screen was a message thread. Photos, dates, locations, familiar ones, including our restaurant. He's been sloppy, she said quietly. I didn't want to be wrong. I stared at the proof until the shape of my life finally settled into something clear and irreversible. There was no misunderstanding, no moment to salvage, no version of this where I was mistaken. The marriage was over, and everything he had built on top of it was standing on my name. Shock didn't last as long as I thought it would. It burned hot, sharp, and then it cleared, leaving something colder behind. Focus. The morning after the restaurant, I woke before sunrise at Naomi's house, fully dressed, phone already in my hand. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I made a list. I called my attorney at 8 on the dot. Not a divorce specialist from a billboard, but the woman who had handled my father's estate. The one who knew exactly how my name was threaded through everything Colin touched. "I need protections in place today," I said. "Not tomorrow. Today." She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. By noon, accounts tied to my inheritance were frozen. Perfectly legal, perfectly clean. Operating accounts Colin used under the assumption they were shared suddenly required 2 signatures instead of 1. Mine and mine alone. I forwarded documents, old contracts, guarantees I'd signed years ago without hesitation. She flagged the ones that mattered, the ones that could be revoked. Then I went to the house. Colin's things were everywhere, exactly where he'd left them. Shoes by the door. His jacket draped over the chair like he'd be back any minute. I walked through the rooms calmly, pulling files, copying hard drives, photographing serial numbers. Evidence doesn't announce itself. You collect it quietly. I packed only what was mine and Maya's. Clothes. School things. Photos that mattered. I didn't touch his office. I didn't need to. Ownership was already documented. At 3 o'clock, I called a real estate broker I trusted. "I want the house evaluated," I said, discreetly. By 5, it was happening. Colin started calling around 6, once, twice, 7 times. I didn't answer. At 7:30, a text came through. "Why are the accounts locked?" I stared at the screen, felt nothing, and set the phone face down. Maya came home from school quiet. She watched me closely, like children do when they sense the ground shifting. "Are you and Dad fighting?" she asked. "No," I said. "We're changing." That night, Colin showed up at Naomi's. I saw his car from the window, saw him sit there for a full minute before getting out. He looked smaller somehow, less certain. He knocked like someone asking for permission. When I opened the door, he didn't speak right away. His eyes flicked past me, searching. "You took Maya," he said finally. "She's my daughter," I replied. "And she's asleep." "You can't just freeze me out like this," he said, voice rising. "I have deals in motion, employees, obligations." I met his eyes. "Then you should have thought about that before you used my money to entertain someone else." His face hardened. "You're overreacting." That was the moment I knew I was ahead. "I'm reacting appropriately," I said. "You're just late." He stepped closer. "Rachel, undo this. We can talk. We can negotiate." I smiled then, just slightly. "We're not negotiating," I said. "I already moved." He stood there, stunned, realizing too late that the version of me he relied on was gone. And I closed the door. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It rippled outward, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. By Monday morning, Colin's office knew something was wrong. His assistant called me, not him, asking why payroll approvals were pending. I told her she should speak to the legal department. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. By lunchtime, his phone was blowing up. I could tell because the texts I wasn't answering started stacking up with more urgency. "We need to talk. This isn't fair. You're putting people at risk. People. Not me. Not Maya." The PR consultant, the same woman he'd insisted was purely professional, posted a photo online that afternoon. A filtered shot of a latte, a vague caption about unexpected endings. Comments flooded in. Friends asked questions. Someone tagged Colin. She deleted it within the hour. That evening, a mutual friend called Naomi. "He's saying Rachel's having some kind of breakdown," the friend said carefully. "That she locked him out emotionally and financially." Naomi laughed, loudly. "That's creative." The next morning, the bank called Colin. They didn't call to apologize. They called to inform. Without my signature, 2 of his pending property closings were paused. Without clarification on ownership structures, lenders were reconsidering terms. No one accused him. No one shouted. They simply stopped moving. That kind of silence is terrifying when you're used to doors opening. The woman from the restaurant, her name was Tessa, I finally learned, Stopped answering his calls by Wednesday. He showed up at her office once. She refused to come down. A colleague texted me a screenshot by mistake, then followed it with an apology. He said you were separated. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. I didn't reply. I archived it. Maya stayed with me. She noticed the tension, but she also noticed something else. You don't look tired anymore, she said one night as I tucked her in. I almost cried then. Almost. Colin tried again on Thursday. Not with anger this time. With panic. He left a voicemail. His voice sounded unfamiliar. Thin. I can't access the operating accounts. My partners are asking questions. This is getting serious. I let the message play to the end. Then I deleted it. By Friday, people were choosing sides without being asked to. Dinner invitations stopped coming to him. A board seat he'd been shortlisted for quietly went to someone else. His brother called me, not him, asking if things were really that bad. Yes, I said. They are. That night, Colin showed up again. This time he didn't knock. I opened the door and stepped outside before he could speak. You're destroying everything, he said. For what? To punish me? I'm not punishing you, I replied. I'm protecting myself. You're humiliating me, he snapped. I looked at him, standing on Naomi's porch, suit rumpled, eyes darting. No, I said. I stopped protecting your image. He stared at me like that was worse. You think you've won something, he said quietly. But you're going to regret this. I didn't answer. Because behind his threat was something new, fear. And for the first time since the restaurant, he understood that whatever came next was no longer under his control. The invitation arrived the following week. A black-tie charity fundraiser at the Downtown Arts Center. Education initiative. High-profile donors. Press expected. Colin had been bragging about it for months. He was supposed to be on stage, shaking hands, positioning himself as a pillar of the community. My name was still printed beside his. I didn't plan to go at first. I didn't need spectacle to prove anything. But then, my attorney forwarded me an email chain. Colin requesting a last-minute revision to the donor program, asking that my name be removed due to personal circumstances. Personal circumstances. I bought a dress the same day. Simple. Unremarkable. Nothing that asked for attention. I arrived early. The lobby buzzed with soft music and polite laughter. Photographers lingered near the entrance. Familiar faces turned when they saw me. Some surprised, some relieved, some already curious. Colin spotted me from across the room. He froze. I watched the realization spread across his face as he understood two things at once. I wasn't avoiding him anymore, and I wasn't afraid of the room. He recovered quickly, smoothed his jacket, put on the smile that used to convince people he was in control. Rachel, he said, approaching me like nothing had changed. I didn't expect you. I'm still a donor, I replied, and my name's still on the checks. He leaned in, lowering his voice. This isn't the place. It's exactly the place, I said. Before he could respond, someone tapped him on the shoulder. The event coordinator. Time for the opening remarks. Colin took the stage alone. He thanked sponsors, spoke about community, about values, about integrity. He said my name once briefly, like an afterthought, then moved on. I stood near the back, listening. Halfway through his speech, the doors opened. Tessa walked in. She wasn't dressed for charity. She was dressed for visibility. Bright, polished, intentional. Heads turned. Colin saw her too late. She made a straight line toward him, heels sharp against the floor, expression tight with something between anger and calculation. She didn't wait for him to finish. I need to talk to you, she said into the mic. Not shouting, just loud enough. The room went silent. Colin stiffened. Not now, he muttered. Now, she repeated. You told me this was handled. People shifted. Phones came out. Someone near me whispered, "Oh no." I stepped forward, not rushing, not dramatic, just enough to be seen. I think I can help, I said. Every eye turned. Colin's face went pale. Rachel, don't. I smiled at Tessa. You were told I was separated, right? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. And that the finances were his? I asked gently. Her lips parted. She looked at Colin. He didn't answer. They're not, I said. They never were. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Tessa took a step back. You said... I said what you needed to hear, Colin snapped. That was his mistake. The coordinator moved toward the stage, panicked, but it was too late. The moment had weight now. It couldn't be pulled back. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a single envelope. Not dramatic, just plain. I brought this for you, I said, holding it out to Colin, since you tried to give me something similar. He stared at it like it might explode. What is that? He asked. Resignation, I replied. From the board, from the projects you don't own, from the narrative you've been selling. I turned to the room. For clarity, I said, voice steady. Any funds tied to my family's assets are no longer available to Colin Whitmore. Any representation otherwise is incorrect. Silence. Then whispers. Tessa laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. You told me you were set. I was, Colin said weakly. Until she decided to... I didn't decide. I cut in. I stopped lying. Tessa shook her head, backing away. I'm done, she said. This is not what you promised. She left without another word. Colin stood there, exposed, microphone still in his hand, the room watching as the version of him they'd applauded minutes ago collapsed in real time. I leaned in close enough for him to hear me. You wanted to be seen, I said quietly. Now you are. Then I turned and walked out. Behind me, the applause never came, only the sound of a man realizing he had nothing left to say. Colin didn't disappear after the fundraiser. He went louder. 3 days later, his name showed up where I expected it would. Local business news, then regional blogs. A carefully framed piece about a high-profile separation, about a man fighting to protect his company and reputation during a private family dispute. I read it once. That was enough. According to the article, he was blindsided. According to the article, I had acted emotionally. According to the article, his projects were suffering because of unexpected financial interference. No mention of the restaurant, no mention of the fundraiser, no mention of the woman who walked out on him in front of donors. He'd found his angle. Then came the video. A sit-down interview, posted online and shared aggressively. Neutral background, calm lighting. Colin speaking directly to the camera like a man with nothing to hide. I've always respected Rachel, he said. But when emotions run high, people make decisions they regret. People. He talked about stress, about pressure, about how success can strain a marriage. He never denied the affair. He just blurted until it sounded like a misunderstanding. The comments were split at first. Supporters, skeptics, friends of friends asking vague questions. Then the receipts started dropping. Not from me. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. Colin underestimated how many people had been watching quietly for years. A former partner posted screenshots of emails, Colin pitching deals he didn't legally control. A junior associate leaked meeting notes showing he'd claimed sole ownership of properties tied to my family trust. Someone uploaded a clip from the fundraiser. Shaky footage, clear audio. You told me you were separated. That line spread fast. By the next morning, his video had more dislikes than views. A hashtag appeared by noon. Nothing clever, nothing cruel. Just his name followed by one word. Receipts. Journalists followed the thread back to the filings. Public records, property registries, ownership structures he'd assumed no one would check. They checked. A follow-up article ran 2 days later. Less sympathetic, more factual. Questions raised about Whitmore's claims of independence. I watched the comments shift in real time. This isn't adding up. Why are the assets in her name? Why did he say they were separated? Colin called me that night. I answered this time. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded. "You're letting people destroy me." "I'm not letting anything happen," I said calmly. "I'm not involved." "You could stop it," he snapped. "One statement, one post." I leaned back in my chair. "So could you. You could tell the truth." Silence. Then softer. "You know how this looks." "Yes," I said. "I do." He exhaled sharply. "You always wanted control." "No," I replied. "I wanted honesty. Control is what you're losing." The call ended without goodbye. The next week was brutal for him. Invitations rescinded. A speaking engagement canceled. A development partner quietly withdrew, citing reputational concerns. Tessa posted once, a vague story about listening to your intuition and not being someone's backup plan. She tagged no one. Everyone knew. Colin tried one last move, a legal threat, thinly worded, claiming defamation. Sent through an attorney who sounded exhausted even on paper. My lawyer responded within hours. They never followed up. By the end of the week, the narrative had settled. Not dramatic, not scandalous, just clear. A man who built his image on someone else's foundation and panicked when it cracked. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I watched the noise die down the same way it had started, on its own, because once the truth is visible, it doesn't need defending. And Colin was finally exposed to the one thing he could never manage. Reality. The legal phase didn't feel dramatic. It felt surgical. There were no shouting matches across conference tables, no slammed doors, just documents moving from one inbox to another, signatures applied, timelines enforced. Every asset Colin once spoke about as ours was suddenly referred to by its correct name. Mine. The divorce filing was clean and precise. Irreconcilable differences. No embellishment. No accusations. My attorney advised restraint, not mercy. "There's a difference," Colin contested at first. Claimed contribution, claimed sweat equity, claimed verbal agreements that existed only in his memory. The court asked for documentation. He had stories. I had records. The properties tied to my father's trust were never up for debate. The operating accounts he'd accessed under marital assumption were severed. Lines of credit he'd leaned on were reviewed, then revoked. Projects stalled not because of revenge, but because lenders don't gamble on instability. Colin's lawyers pushed for mediation. Mine agreed. He arrived looking thinner, less polished. His suit didn't fit the way it used to. He talked fast, jumped points, tried to reframe the past as collaboration instead of dependency. The mediator asked one simple question: "Can you demonstrate independent financial capacity?" He couldn't. The house sold within 30 days. Quiet listing, strong offer, proceeds deposited where they belonged. Colin moved into a short-term rental and told people it was temporary. Temporary has a way of stretching when no one's backing you anymore. Custody was settled quickly. Maya stayed with me. Not because I asked, because Colin didn't fight. His schedule had become erratic. Meetings canceled. Travel cut. His attention fractured. He promised he'd call her every night. He didn't. Maya noticed. She didn't ask why. Colin's family stopped calling him soon after. His brother reached out to me instead, apologized for not seeing it sooner, said he couldn't get involved anymore. "I can't risk my own firm," he admitted quietly. His father didn't call at all. I heard through someone else that he'd refused to co-sign a loan Colin desperately needed to stay afloat. Said it was time for him to stand on his own. The mistress's collapse was quieter, but no less final. Tessa lost her contract within weeks. Clients don't like being associated with public messes. She scrubbed her online presence, deleted posts, tried to rebrand. It didn't take. People remembered. She moved cities. Or so I was told. By the end of the quarter, Colin's name was gone from 2 boards and 3 partnerships. Not ceremoniously removed, simply omitted. People stopped returning calls. Emails went unanswered. Isolation isn't loud. It's empty. The final decree arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I signed it without hesitation. My attorney slid the papers across the table, waited. "You're free," she said. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. Colin tried once more after that. A message. Not angry, not pleading, just tired. I never meant to lose everything. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I blocked the number. Because the truth was simple. He didn't lose everything. He lost access. And the difference between the two is what decides who survives the fallout, and who doesn't. I was standing at the entrance of the coffee shop, the one we used to frequent on lazy weekends. The scent of freshly ground beans mixed with the muffled hum of early morning conversations. The same table where we had shared so many quiet moments now felt like a stage for an impending showdown. My eyes scanned the room, landing on him sitting in the far corner, looking as disheveled as I had ever seen him. He was waiting, clutching a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold, his fingers fidgeting with the rim. His posture, once confident and commanding, now seemed small, almost apologetic. The man who had always controlled every room he entered was reduced to a shell of his former self. It had been months since I walked away from him, months of watching him spiral, desperate to win me back, desperate to find a way to undo the damage. The calls, the messages, the letters. All of them littered with pleading words, empty promises. But they were nothing more than words. After everything he had done, nothing could ever repair what had been broken. He looked up as I approached, his face lighting up in a mix of relief and hope, but the look didn't last. It was quickly replaced by an unease, as if he had just realized the depth of his situation. I didn't sit down. I stood there, tall, calm, and unwavering. "Please, I need you to listen," he said, his voice shaking, trying to reach for my hand, but I pulled it away before he could touch me. "Don't touch me," I snapped, the sharpness of my tone catching him off guard. He recoiled, his face falling as he pulled his hand back. "I know what I've done, and I'm sorry," he continued, his words tripping over each other as he rushed to explain. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I never meant to hurt you." A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. "A moment of weakness? You call betraying me a moment of weakness?" I shook my head, disbelief and rage bubbling up inside of me. "No, James. This was a choice, a conscious decision, and you knew exactly what you were doing." He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing with the effort. His eyes were desperate now, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean for things to go this far. Please, you have to understand. I was lost, and I just needed someone." I could feel the disgust rising within me, but I forced myself to remain calm. I had spent too long allowing him to manipulate my emotions, to make excuses for his behavior. But not anymore. This time, he wasn't getting away with it. "You didn't need anyone, James. You had me. You had everything. And you threw it all away for what? A quick fix? A chance to escape the consequences of your own choices?" My voice was steady now, laced with anger, but also a sense of clarity. "You don't get to make me feel sorry for you. Not anymore." He opened his mouth to speak again, but I cut him off. "I'm done. I've been done. You've had every opportunity to fix this, but you chose not to. You chose her instead. And now, you're going to live with the consequences." His face crumpled in frustration, his fists clenched on the table. "I'll do anything to fix this, anything to make it right. Just give me a chance." The words hung in the air between us, empty, meaningless. I had heard them all before, but there was no going back. Not after everything he had done. I leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with him. "You want to fix this?" I asked coldly. "The only thing left for you to fix is your life, and you're going to have to do it without me." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle over him. The silence stretched between us, thick with the finality of it all. But then I said the words that would end this chapter for good. "You've already lost everything that mattered." I stood tall now, ready to walk away, to leave him in the dust where he belonged. And that's not something I can undo. Not now. Not ever. His face twisted with an expression of pure regret. But it was too late. I turned on my heel, heading for the door. Behind me, I heard him call my name, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. And with that, I left him there, broken and alone, just as he had left me all those months ago. There was no turning back now. This was the end of our story. As I walked out into the sunlight, I couldn't help but feel the smallest shred of relief. I was free. It's funny how life moves on when you least expect it. The days that used to drag on, each one filled with the weight of betrayal, now passed by in a blur of purpose and newfound peace. I had spent so long caught in a storm that I never truly noticed the calm until it arrived. It wasn't instant, but after a while, I realized that I had come out the other side of it, stronger and more complete than I ever thought possible. The first few months after everything ended felt like I was swimming in unfamiliar waters. My days were filled with what I once thought were insurmountable tasks, finding a new routine, settling into my own space, rebuilding trust in myself. It wasn't easy, but every challenge, every tiny victory, built something in me I hadn't expected. Resilience. I learned what it meant to be truly independent, to not rely on anyone but myself. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. One of the first things I did after I walked away was take a long, hard look at my life, at everything I had allowed myself to become. I wasn't just a victim of his betrayal. I had allowed myself to be trapped in a life that wasn't serving me, bound by my own insecurities, by my desperate need to fix things I couldn't control. Now, for the first time in years, I was free to become the person I had always wanted to be, but had buried beneath the layers of anger and hurt. The apartment was mine. The space was quiet, filled with nothing but my own thoughts and the hum of my own heartbeat. There was no one else's opinion to filter through, no one else's demands to meet. I could just exist. And for the first time, it felt okay to simply be. But it wasn't just my physical space that changed. I felt different on the inside too, as if I had shed a layer of skin I never knew I could live without. The months spent in isolation, in reflection, allowed me to truly understand my own strength. It's incredible what you can learn about yourself when you stop listening to the noise around you. The lies, the excuses, the whispers of doubt, all of it faded into nothingness. I could hear myself clearly now, and I liked what I heard. My career took off in a way I had never imagined. I had always been capable, always had the drive and talent to go further than I did. But for so long, I had kept myself small. Now there was nothing holding me back. I was being recognized at work, my projects gained attention, and soon I was offered a promotion I had once only dreamed of. But it wasn't just about the job. It was about proving to myself that I had always had what it took. The validation came from within. It wasn't just my career that blossomed. The most surprising change was in the relationship I had with my daughter. For years, I had been so consumed with trying to fix a broken marriage that I hadn't seen how much I had neglected the one relationship that mattered most. After everything that happened, I decided to make it my mission to show her what it meant to be strong, to be resilient, to stand up for yourself when the world tries to knock you down. I showed her that even when life falls apart, you can build something better with your own two hands. She was growing into a young woman of incredible character, and I couldn't have been prouder of her. Every day, she surprised me with her kindness, her intelligence, and her strength. In many ways, she was the best thing that came out of the wreckage, a living testament to everything I had fought for. Our bond was unbreakable now, forged in the fires of everything we had been through together. I found joy in the small things again. A cup of coffee on a quiet morning, the sound of rain against the window as I worked at my desk, a walk through the park on a sunny afternoon. These were the moments that had once seemed so ordinary, but now they were everything. I had been given a second chance at life, and I wasn't about to squander it. Of course, there were times when memories of him slipped back into my mind, like unwelcome ghosts, but they were different now. They didn't have the power to hurt me anymore. They had become stories, pieces of a past that had already been written, and I was no longer living in them. I wasn't his wife anymore. I wasn't his victim. I was me, whole, independent, and free. As for him, I had heard from mutual acquaintances that he had tried to pick up the pieces of his life. But it wasn't the same for him. His friends had abandoned him, his business had taken a hit, and even his family had distanced themselves. The mistress, the one he had betrayed me for, had moved on too. She had left him at some point, deciding he wasn't worth the trouble. And while part of me felt a fleeting sense of satisfaction at watching him struggle, the truth was that I no longer cared. His failure wasn't my problem to fix. I had let go of that burden, and in doing so, I had freed myself. When I looked in the mirror now, I saw a woman who had fought her way back from the edge and emerged stronger. And it felt good. No, better than good. It felt like victory. Like I had won back my life in ways I hadn't even thought possible. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, truly living, and I knew I would never stop. And with that, I closed the door on the past, leaving it exactly where it belonged, behind me. Thank you for tuning into the Velvet Revenge channel. Please hit that like button and hype the video, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you soon.